The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
So just before we started here, I saw a tweet from Holly Rowe, who is one of the top college football sideline reporters. She does a lot of work for ESPN, and she put out a tweet, fun fact I learned tonight. Frank Broyles' pregame meal at Razorbacks football was Frosted Flakes over ice cream. We had it at the Broyles Award dinner tonight. I am obsessed. Here's what I wonder about. What about that sugar crash? Didn't that affect him in the fourth quarter? Didn't that cause him to lose all energy? I don't know. That's a weird pregame meal. You get that rush. Oh, boy, coming out of the tunnel, you are fired up. But it doesn't last forever. Sugar has a big crash effect, which apparently did not affect him all that much. I would say this about Frank Broyles. He's probably more famous, at least to people under the age of 70, as an analyst rather than a coach. I don't really know how many people have recollections of him as a coach. I believe he stopped somewhere in the mid-70s. And Lou Holtz became a very successful coach at Arkansas before he went on to Notre Dame. But anyway, it's a roundabout way of saying we're probably in our sugar crash right now with sports. We had a football season, although the climax to it wasn't much. The Super Bowl was kind of a dud. But we've had this routine of football that has gone back to include college football to mid-August. And now we're in mid-February, and we come up for air, and we go, oh, what do we got here? Well, we ain't got much. We got the NBA All-Star Game this weekend, and I can't imagine I'm going to watch more than 30 seconds of it. Yeah, they changed the format to try and make it more competitive. It's like this round-robin thing where there's three teams who play against each other, and one of them is made up of foreign players. And, the players turned this thing into an absolute joke. They've done away with the Pro Bowl because that got ridiculous. Baseball All-Star Game, it survives, but it's not nearly as good. They've really schlocked that up. And the NBA All-Star Game has somehow survived in various forms. They've tried everything to get the players interested in actually competing, but they don't. They just, throw up a bunch of threes and play. Well, they never really played that much defense, but at least it resembled a basketball game for a lot of years. And in the last 10, I would say it is not. And they've tried to come up with different things to make it better. I'll get to that, but I did want to talk about the series that is now on Prime. And it's about the ABA. It's a 4-part series. It's called Soul Power. It was produced by Julius Erving, who is the most important player in the history of the ABA, and in my mind is the one that caused the merger. The NBA looked at what was happening in the ABA and said, we're struggling here. We got a boring brand of basketball. They got an exciting brand of basketball, and they have the most exciting player in basketball in Julius Erving, and they had some other stars. Moses Malone had gone there, and Rick Barry was kind of back and forth between the ABA and the NBA, but they had a lot to offer there, and so that's what forced the merger in 1976. And I am through the first 2 parts of this 4-part series. About 4 hours. Each of them is 55 to 60 minutes, so I've got 2 more to go. But it talked about the formation of the league in 1967, and I don't think we'll ever have anything like this again. We have now some minor football leagues. I don't even know what it's called. Is it the UFL? At one time, it was the XFL, USFL, reiteration. It survives, and they know their place. They're not going to be in a position where they can go to the NFL and say, hey, we need to merge, as the USFL tried and failed to do. But the ABA came along at a time where some entrepreneurs said, we'd like to own an NBA team. And the going rate, believe it or not, was not that much over $1 million. Abe Pollin had paid a record to buy out his partners in 1964 with the Baltimore Bullets at $1.1 million. And 3 years later, I don't think the price had gone up much. I don't know if any other teams had sold at that point. And these guys were businessmen who said, we'd like to own a basketball team, but $1 million is a little rich for our blood. So you could buy an ABA team for $5,000. The problem is you got to have payroll, you got to have arena rental, travel, marketing. There's a lot of costs associated with it. So you had to have pretty deep pockets if you wanted to go in. And so they made a go of it in the first couple of years. They did get Rick Barry there because Rick was not real happy with the situation with the Golden State Warriors. I guess they were still called the San Francisco Warriors at that point. And his then father-in-law, Bruce Hale, who had been his coach at Miami in college, was now coaching the Oakland Oaks, who were owned by Pat Boone. And he thought, that'd be fun. Let me go play for my father-in-law with the Oakland Oaks. That sounds like a really good idea. So he did that, and then the NBA went to court to block it. He had to sit out a year. He winds up playing a year. But the league is off to kind of a tough start, as most startups are. They had players like Connie Hawkins, who is a tremendous player, but had been implicated in associating with gamblers while he was at Iowa, so the NBA banned him. There were some other guys who had slipped through the cracks, and they had talent, but they were having trouble getting footing. And this was the best story that I saw of the two parts that I watched last night. By the second season, at the end of the second season, they are saying to themselves, the owners, hey, we really have to have a marketable star to get noticed here. We're still behind the eight ball here. The NBA has a television contract. We don't have a television contract. Some games were televised locally, but not all of them. And coming out of college in 1969, after at the end of the second year of the ABA, is one of the most transformational players in history. And that was Lou Alcindor, who had just led UCLA to 3 straight national championships. They lost only 2 games in his 3 years of varsity basketball. He could only play 3 in those days. 3-time player of the year. And not only that, they had changed the rules of college basketball for him. Didn't allow you to dunk because they thought, he'll just be too dominant. We have to stop dunking. So after his sophomore year, they prevented dunking in college basketball, which lasted like 6 or 7 years. But anyway, they knew, the owners, that they would have a guy who would put them on the map instantly. The anticipation for Lou Alcindor, the only two I can really compare in recent years are LeBron James and Victor Wembanyama. But the thing is, we really hadn't seen them except, LeBron on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They televised a couple of his high school games, and then Wembanyama had played overseas. Well, we saw Kareem, or Lou Alcindor as he was in those days, mainly in the Final Fours. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of college basketball games televised, but one of the most famous ones was at the Houston Astrodome in 1968? Yeah, his junior year when they played the University of Houston. And at the Astrodome, they had like 50,000 people, and that kind of helped to put college basketball really in the forefront. So he was the guy coming out, and they wanted to land him. And so they went to Lou Alcindor, and they said, okay, we want you so bad, we'll let you decide where you want to play. Well, he played at UCLA. I don't remember. No, I don't. Yeah, they had the Utah Stars, but they were, I think, the furthest west team. I'm not sure they had a team in Los Angeles in those days. He was from New York. He loved New York. And decided that, if I have the opportunity to play in New York, I want to play there. And so they said, no problem. We'll get you to the New York Nets. And the owners all came together, and they said, okay, we have to have this guy. How do we do this? And they pool their resources, and they come up with a certified check for $1 million. And Alcindor says to the ABA and to the Milwaukee Bucks, who had drafted him number 1 overall, I don't want to negotiate here. What I want you guys to do is to each come up with your best offer, and I'll decide which one I want to take. It's as simple as that. We're not going to have any negotiations here. Nets, you come up with your best offer. Bucks, you come up with your best offer. So the ABA went, okay, we're going to blow him away by putting this $1 million certified check in front of him, which, believe me, in 1969 was a hell of a lot of money. I mean, that's what franchises were selling for. So $1 million was really a big thing. Well, the commissioner of the ABA was George Mikan, and George Mikan had been the first transformational star in the NBA when he played for the Minneapolis Lakers. And they thought that would give us instant credibility if we hire him as the commissioner of the league. So they did. And it was George Mikan's job to convince Kareem to come to the ABA, which he was willing to do because they were going to put him in New York. His parents lived there. They could see him play, and that would be something that he definitely wanted to do. Well, here's what went down. With this $1 million check that Mikan was supposed to present to Kareem, he had a meeting with Lou Alcindor, later Kareem, and he said, "We decided that it wasn't necessary to give him our best offer. We figure when he comes back to us, we'll use the check for the second round of talks." In other words, that was going to be the thing that cemented the deal. He wasn't listening to Alcindor when he said, I don't want to play these games. One offer, that's it. And so when the other owners went, whoa, that wasn't the plan. We were supposed to present him with $1 million offer. And Micah said, don't panic. We know he's coming back. He's going to get the NBA's best offer. He'll come back to us. And one of the owners said to him, is that what he said he would do? And Micah said, well, not exactly, but the kid did say that he would make the decision. So in other words, he underestimated the intelligence of Lou Alcindor, who's a very intelligent man, and said, yeah, I know he says it's only one offer, but we'll give him our offer, and then when he comes back, we'll throw in the $1 million check, and that'll cement the deal. Well, that was pretty much the end of George Mikan, and Lou Alcindor went to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Bucks' offer was 1.4. The ABA would have gone way over that with, like, the down payment of the $1 million check, but that didn't happen thanks to the incompetence of George Mikan. And when the Bucks gave him the 1.4, the Nets came back with an offer of $3.2 million. That's how far they were willing to go. And Lou Alcindor said, no, that's not the deal. That's not the way it works. I'm going to honor what the Bucks have offered. And he went to the NBA, and the rest is history. That would have made a merger happen very, very quickly. This is part of what was happening at the time. This was from April of 1969. James Christ was the owner of the Utah Stars, and this was from a brief part of an interview about this debacle that the ABA had in not landing Lou Alcindor. And why is that not working? Probably because of this. Let's try this. Not landing Lou Alcindor. Nope, this is it. All right, let's try this. Not landing Lou Alcindor.
I really feel the deck was stacked on us. When you take one of the negotiators in negotiations is a part owner in the National Basketball League, leads to me to believe that we couldn't have made a big enough offer.
Yeah, conflict of interest there. So I don't know who that owner was, but the ABA was, a fledgling operation at that point. So there may have been an owner in the ABA who also had interest in an NBA team. Ultimately, there was a merger, but it took a lot longer. And there's another part of this too, which is fascinating. What the ABA served the NBA Players Association for was the ability to get more money if you wanted to stay in the NBA. You could always jump to the ABA for more money. And the owners went, this is just not working. Both sides. There was an agreement between the owners of the NBA and the ABA that they would merge, and they would merge fairly early, like 3 years into the league. The league lasted 9 years. 3 years in, there was this agreement that they would do that. And Oscar Robertson, one of the great players in the history of the game, was the president of the Players Association. And he went, whoa, this is going to hurt us. They're cutting down the competition. And he went to court declaring that they were trying to create a monopoly here, and it made it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Players Association. So that kept the ABA alive for like 6 more years. And what Oscar was able to do for the players was enormous because, once you cut, just like anything, once you cut down the competition, you got less chance that you're going to have any kind of negotiating power. And there was no free agency in the NBA in those days. So this was the best you could do. If you wanted more money, you could jump to the ABA, as stars did, like Billy Cunningham, who left the Philadelphia 76ers to go to the Carolina Cougars. I mean, you could play one league off another, and once this merger is agreed to, and you'd think, wow, okay, they finally got labor peace. We're going to have the ABA teams joining the NBA, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. And the Players Association, led by Oscar Robertson, went, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, 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 no. And surprisingly, I think, the Supreme Court ruled in his favor, so the ABA stayed in business for a longer period of time. There's two more parts coming up, which I did not stay up to watch last night, but plan to get to them this weekend. And this starts to deal with some of the other cool stories that are involved in the league, including a young Bob Costas, who as a senior at Syracuse sent a tape to the Spirits of St. Louis, who were broadcast on KMOX, one of the great radio stations in the country, one of the most powerful signals. And as a kid, he landed this job, which launched Bob Costas, and there's a story apparently that will come in the next episode that I watched that he said something on the air that he shouldn't have said as a kid, which theoretically could have ended his career at that point. I don't think it would have, and he became one of the greatest of all time. But that's all part of the history, and I'm sure they'll get to the Marvin Bad News Barnes part of it. That he would the crazy stuff that he would do when he was playing in St. Louis. So I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed the first two parts. I'm old enough to have seen a game. I remember seeing Rick Barry play for the Washington Caps at the old Washington Coliseum. I remember the red, white, and blue ball. But they're working. It's a 4-hour series, and they're working with very little. They don't have game tape. Almost the games that were televised, there were some local broadcasts, but that tape doesn't survive. And there were relatively few, maybe a few dozen nationally televised games, and they were like ABA championship games. I forget that maybe ABC had them. I forget, but it was not anything like today. And what the ABA did for the NBA, I don't think could be overstated. So I highly recommend it, especially if you're old enough to remember it. All right. Do you remember the movie Necessary Roughness? Came out, believe it or not, 35 years ago. One of the stars of that movie, Kathy Ireland, was on our morning show yesterday. I'll tell you a story about her that goes back to my days at WFAN, and also what she says about where Necessary Roughness ranks in the pantheon of sports movies. Try not to have a spit take. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
There haven't been that many football-based sports movies that have been great. I would say the original Longest Yard as a comedy for football was good, and I think the made-for-TV movie Brian's Song is a classic. There aren't that many. It doesn't lend itself as well maybe to the baseball with Major League. We've had some pretty good comedies with basketball. But 35 years ago, we had Necessary Roughness, based loosely on SMU. SMU got the death penalty for doing what is perfectly legal now, paying players. But the NCAA cracked down on them and shut down the program for a year. And they said, well, we can't come back after a year. We need 2 to bring ourselves back. And I don't think we'll ever see – well, we won't, because there's no such thing as cheating anymore. But that led to this movie, Necessary Roughness, which came out in 1991, starring Scott Bakula, Hector Elizondo, Robert Loggia. Jason Bateman is in it, Sinbad. Rob Schneider, one of the many that do comedy movies and somewhat controversial for his political stance. Kathy Ireland is also in this movie. Now, she comes from the supermodel era of Cindy Crawford, just behind like Cheryl Tiegs, and she did a number of Sports Illustrated swimsuit shoots and did carved out quite a career. She's 62 years old now and still promoting fitness and mental health and things like that. But back about the time this movie came out, in fact, she may have been promoting this movie when it happened, I forget, but she was on WFAN show. I believe at the time it was hosted by Ed Coleman and Dave Sims. Dave Sims is now the radio announcer for the Yankees. And they have her on, and they're talking about whatever she's promoting, may have been the movie. And they go to commercial break. And they come back from the commercial break, and she thinks that they're still in break, that they're not on the air. And she says, my husband is a proctologist. All his patients are, and she said the actual word, a-holes. What a great blooper takes, especially when you think about Kathy Ireland saying it. So that became one of the all-time WFAN bloopers for that. She's still married to this doctor. I guess he's done other things besides being a proctologist, but they've had a long marriage, and she seems to be very friendly and chatty and all that. But this was the big scene that she had in the movie Necessary Roughness. Now, if you're not familiar with the plot, they came up with a fictional name for a college that has since become a real college. When I was in San Antonio and Dallas, we had Southwest Texas State, which is just outside of San Antonio. 2003, it became Texas State University, which it is today. One of my best friend's daughter and actually his wife graduated from there when it was Southwest Texas. Anyway, they were known as the Fighting Armadillos in this movie. And they had to start over with a new season because the program had been shut down because of scandal. And so the new coach is a straight-laced guy, Ed Straight Arrow Gennaro, who is played by Hector Elizondo, and he's charged with putting a team together. They only have 17 guys, and they have no scholarships to give out. They bring in a quarterback who's kind of like the Burt Reynolds type, played by Scott Bakula, 34-year-old former high school star who never went to college because his father passed away. So he comes in as the quarterback, and they're putting this team together, and they need a kicker. And so they bring in a star from the women's team, played by Kathy Ireland, and her name is Lucy Draper. She's the star of the women's soccer team, and she shows up in the short shorts, and she's got the beautiful legs and beautiful person, all the things that you would want in a supermodel. But she's going to be their kicker, and this is the scene where she makes the team.
What? Nice kick.
That's a little off.
All right, take it back 10 yards.
Oh, are you kidding me? Yo, man, see? That's the pressure TV, man. That's what happened to wrestling, man. Women take over the sport, man.
How about taking it back 10 yards?
Yeah!
Whoa.
And that was 40 yards.
How long was that?
40 yards.
Now, can you believe that?
I don't even drive that far.
She's got some foot. And it keeps getting better on the way up.
Ooh, sexist, 1991. A 40-yard field goal. Hey, she made a 40. I don't drive that far. Shows you how far kicking has come. A 40-yard field goal used to be a big deal in college. Now, if you can't kick a 40-yard field goal in high school, you're not the kicker. they turn that over to somebody else. So anyway, yesterday she's on promoting whatever she's promoting on our morning show, Unsportsmanlike. And, of course, they want to talk about the movie Necessary Roughness, which is now 35 years old, and how she landed a part in it.
I've always loved sports as a little girl. I share with people that I'm not an actress. I've got the movies to prove it, although Necessary Roughness was great. I'm very literal, and when I read the script, I thought it was a serious drama. I mean, why not have a woman kicker on a all-male college football team? It made perfect sense to me, and I was really excited about it. It wasn't until we started filming that I recognized, oh, it's a comedy. But they put me in 2 months of football training, and it was hard. But by the end of it, I made it through the 30-yard line, so that was pretty good.
A 30-yard field goal. Let me tell you something. If you've ever gone out and fooled around on a high school field, that's not easy to do. So give her credit for that. But you're telling me she took a movie part that she didn't know was a comedy? That it was, we thought it was serious that we would have a woman kicker with the now not all of these actors, I guess to be fair to her, were comedic actors. Certainly Sinbad would be considered that. Rob Schneider would be considered that. But, Scott Bakula, Hector Elizondo, Robert Loggia, maybe you can make the case. But don't they go through more before they agree to a movie, that whether they want to know whether it's a drama or a comedy? And then they got more into sports movies. And, she's in the studio, so I think they're a little kinder than they probably needed to be. But I think Evan Cohen referred to this as one of the great sports movies. It's not. It's kind of a schlocky comedy. But this is Kathy Ireland putting it in at least her pantheon of sports movies.
Oh, my goodness. I loved that film. It was so much fun. There's so many great movies about sports, everything from Chariots of Fire, Field of Dreams, Woodlawn, Unbroken. I love this movie. What an athlete, Louis Zamperini, an Olympian runner. This was a man who was a thief as a kid, always running from the cops, and he used that gift to become an Olympian. Then he enrolls in the Army, and his plane gets shot down. He survives 47 days at sea. Those gifts just empowered him to survive the most brutal, what was called the death camp in World War II. And Mr. Zamperini became a dear friend, so grateful to him. But Angelina Jolie did an extraordinary job in capturing his life, yet his life is so full. You can't get it in one movie. His family did the second part, which is called Unbroken, The Path to Redemption, because he truly was broken after World War II. PTSD, raging alcoholic, before he came to know Jesus at a Billy Graham tent mission meeting, and it changed his life. He went to Japan and forgave the guy who tried to kill him. But just powerful stories of endurance, and we find them all the time. And then, of course, Adam Sandler's done some amazing, funny sports movies that are right along the lines of Necessary Roughness.
Yeah, so God bless her, but, you don't put Necessary Roughness in the same category as Field of Dreams, Chariots of Fire, and Unbroken, which is not a sports movie. If you've seen it, it's actually a book that was written by Laura Hillenbrand, went to my high school, BCC. She also wrote Seabiscuit, and she did a lot of research on this and talked to him before he passed away many times for the book. And it was about being a prisoner of war more so than anything else. Yeah, he relied on his training as an athlete at USC, where he was a great sprinter, but really? You're going to put it in that category? And then in the end, you throw in Adam Sandler movies? I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I think this movie, her movie, Unnecessary Roughness, goes in there with like Son of Flubber. I just don't think so. And she's brought on to talk about something else, and they brought in the sports movie, but she did the movie. And let's not pretend that this has gone with the wind. It was a schlocky sports movie made for a couple of laughs, and had some things in it that people probably enjoyed. But nobody would make this a classic sports movie. But she's all excited about that. Okay, what the Simpsons is having its 800th episode on Sunday. It's in its 37th year. They've won 37 Emmy Awards. And I remember when this started, this was part of the Tracy Ullman Show, this sort of a variety show in the early days of Fox. And they had 48 installments between 87 and 89. They made it into a half-hour cartoon show. Nobody thought it would last. And here it is, 800 episodes. And the people who voiced the characters, they are printing money. Julie Kavner, who's been the voice of Marge. Lisa has been played by Yardley Smith. Dan Castellaneta, who has played Homer. Don't they get paid? Remember, this is now the 800th episode. I'm not great at the math here, but each of them is paid $300,000 to $400,000 per episode, and an episode of The Simpsons cost $6.5 million in 2017. Now, enough people watching it, you get it back in in return money for running the show. But think about that. A job you could do in your sweatpants, show up and read some script. Don't care how you look. Nobody has to put makeup on you. There's no acting. It's just how you read. And I'm sure for an episode, they spend some amount of time, maybe a full day, putting it together to get just all the lines right. But $300,000 to $400,000 an episode, and you have made 800 of them. That's a pretty good gig. That's a pretty good gig, but I can guarantee you I'm not making that per show, per year, maybe per decade. I mean, come on. Wow. That's incredible. That is absolutely stunning. All right, coming up, what Joe Judge said in court yesterday, the former Giants coach, that's stunning. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630. For my money, the 85 Bears defense is the best of all time. I saw them play. I was at that Super Bowl where they blasted the Patriots. I also saw the 2000 Ravens, and I was at that Super Bowl where they kept the Giants out of the end zone except for a kick return. That defense was awesome. Those who want to make the case that this Seattle defense is the best of all time or right in the ballpark with those two, I don't buy that, and neither does Rod Woodson, who was a part of those 2000 Ravens, and he made the case for his defense on the Rich Eisen show. I think it's between his defense and the 85 Bears, but you'll hear the compelling case that he made yesterday if you missed it here on ESPN 630. This is the way college football works these days. We used to have, you think about Maurice Clarett, what he must be thinking now, watching these guys who are desperate to stay in college. And basically, he blew up his career in one of the most amazing ways. If you remember, Maurice Clarett was the star of the Ohio State team that won the national championship. I think it was in 2003 over Miami. And he wanted to go to the NFL. And he looked at his friend, LeBron James. They'd grown up in the same area in Ohio. And he looked at LeBron, who had a $90 million contract from Nike and was making whatever he was making with the Cleveland Cavaliers, making a lot of money. And here's Maurice Clarett in the days before NIL. He can't make anything. So he sued to get into the NFL. And the NFL fought it, and they won. And to this day, you've got to stay 3 years in college before you play football. That's not the case for basketball, but that is the case with the NFL successfully keeping them out. So all these years later, we got players who are doing everything they can to stay in college. I want another year. I want another year. Now, whether Trinidad Chambliss will ultimately become a very good NFL quarterback remains to be seen. He's had a meteoric rise. Think about this. He was playing Division II football just 2 years ago, Ferris State. They were good. So he takes his talents to Ole Miss, where he expects to be the backup. Well, starter gets hurt, he takes over, and Ole Miss becomes a playoff team. And Trinidad Chambliss is considered to be one of the top quarterbacks in college football. If he'd come out for the draft, would he be a first-round pick? Mel Kiper even says maybe. He may be that good. But he's making money at Ole Miss. He can improve his draft stock if he stays another year, which would be his 6th year of college football. And he has taken it to court, and it looks like he has won so far. I don't know whether there can be a further appeal on this, but what he was saying is he should have had a 6th year because of a medical red shirt, which I will get to. But the hearing initially was denied, or the request was denied on January 9th, and then his appeal was denied on February 5th. Then Ole Miss filed a request for reconsideration from the NCAA claiming new evidence, and the request was filed and had also been denied. But then yesterday, he was granted another year of eligibility by a state court judge in Mississippi. Now, a lot of this goes back to the 1 year, which he's claiming should have been a redshirt year, but was not, I guess, filed as a redshirt year. It was his 2nd year at Ferris State. He had played junior college, and he had respiratory issues and didn't dress for the games. And medical records indicate that he had to that he chose to forego surgery, but the medication didn't work. In making his argument, he talked about how the respiratory issues caused sleep problems. And as part of the testimony in this hearing yesterday, Joe Judge, remember Joe Judge used to be the coach of the Giants. He got fired. Now he's an assistant coach, offensive coordinator at Ole Miss. So listen to this. This is part of his testimony in this trial about how sleep is important to players, but the example that he uses is very Neanderthal.
We would have to educate significant others who may have been pregnant during the season or going to have a baby during the season. And you'd have to educate them on, you have this baby in the middle of the season. That father has to play good football, right? It's a day-by-day production business. He has to be ready to perform and go out there and play. And when I say that is, you need to let him sleep. He needs to be in another room, detached. You have to explain to the mother, like, hey, listen, he ain't waking up for midnight feedings. After the season, he's full metal jacket. You do whatever you want with him. And he can change every diaper. But in the season, he's got to have a different priority.
So he's saying to all the women of America who are married to college football players or football players in general, he didn't specify, maybe he means NFL too, do not expect your man to wake up for a late feeding or a diaper change. That's on you. Now, you may have a job too. You may have a job which causes you to have a lot of time spent on it, in the office, out of the office, commuting, whatever. But no. Football player, he has to have his rest. So make sure that you do all the work at night and don't bother your man. Lane Kiffin initially has been taken down, but initially posted a face palm emoji saying, "What are you doing here, Joe Judge? Come on, man! It's 2026. Is that what you're gonna do?" Oh, man. So the world of college football. We talked about this recently. There was a big controversy about a player missing a game for the birth of a baby, and there was a player, this over 30 years ago with the Houston Oilers, David Williams, which they called Babygate. He missed a road trip to New England when he was playing for the Oilers because his wife had gone into labor on Saturday and was too late to get a flight to New England for the game. And that became a raging controversy. But old Joe Judge, he's going to bring it back. That he's going to tell all the women who are married to football players, do not disturb your man. More football. Saw Chris Sims the other day, kind of ripping into what the Commanders are doing here with going with two coordinators. Neither one of them has called plays before. You have David Blau, who's the new offensive coordinator, moving up from quarterbacks coach, replacing Cliff Kingsbury, and the defensive coordinator, Durante Jones. Although he's been a coach for a long time, the only time he's ever been a coordinator was the 1 year at LSU. Has never done it in the NFL. And Chris Sims was saying, this is nuts. And you wonder about the thinking here on Dan Quinn, who's kind of on the hot seat this year. Any coach coming off a 5-12 year in the NFL, you can't have anything close to that again. I mean, this team has to be at least in the hunt for a playoff spot through the season, late in the season, and they were not last year. And I look at this as just an outside shot in the dark. I don't know anything about this, but could it be that Dan Quinn is so concerned about having a coordinator who he really can't interfere with, and I think Cliff Kingsbury had that kind of standing that he couldn't do that he wanted to make sure that he had somebody who was new on the job. I mean, Blau was playing only like 3 years ago. He's new to coaching. And does Quinn want to be able to have more input than maybe he was able to get with Cliff Kingsbury? And then the Joe Witt thing was a disaster. And Joe Witt is very similar to what you're getting here with Durante Jones. I know he had history with Quinn. They coached together in Dallas, but he'd never been a coordinator before on any level. And he comes in and was a 2-year mess so bad that Quinn had to take over the play calling responsibilities last year. So there is something to that. And Tom Lavero suggests maybe money might have been a part of this, that they were interested in Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings, and he wound up getting a new contract for $6 million a year. Did ownership here not want to pay that? I don't think we know enough about Josh Harris to say that that definitely wasn't the case. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And then when you have Mike McDaniel available as the former head coach of the Dolphins and history with Dan Quinn, who helped him to deal with his alcohol problem, and as Tom points out, I didn't know this, that he met his wife here when he was an assistant with Washington back in the Mike Shanahan days. Didn't know that. And then Mike McDonald, who's the now championship coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He was in the mix here. Did it come down to money? Why he went to Seattle? Who knows? But that's a possibility. So Tom writes in his column, it begs the question, if Dan Quinn is still the right guy, why wasn't offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury and his under-center adverse offense good enough to carry the franchise in 2024, still a part of the mix for 2026? Again, they've said part of the new offense under Blau will have Jaden Daniels under center a lot more. And then, Joe Witt Jr., nobody even asked questions about why he was fired because he was essentially fired in the middle of the year and his defense was terrible. But if you're not going to really consider Brian Flores to replace an inexperienced guy, as you're getting with Jones here, what are they thinking? And that is something that could be in the mix here. That there is an economic part of this. There's an economic part of all of this that they don't want to pay assistant coaches that kind of money. We don't know that, but that might be in the mix here. Blau is only 30 years old. Tom also goes as far. I don't know if this might be something to think about. Excuse me. Got a sneeze coming on. Let's see. Got it. Okay, sorry. That Sean McVay, remember him? He was the offensive coordinator, and they had they did Jay Gruden as the coach. And they wound up letting McVay go, and the rest is history. He's had great teams in Los Angeles, been to 2 Super Bowls and won one. So as Tom is suggesting, if Blau is successful, might that mean that he could be the heir apparent to Dan Quinn? It's all in play. It's amazing how things can change in a year. This time a year ago, we're going, hey, Quinn took him to the doorstep. Great job, great coach, great hire. Future's great. So great, you have to wear shades like Huey Lewis. And now it's like, you better do a lot better than last year, or that could be it. And that's how things move in the NFL. They move that quickly. Here's Chris Sims yesterday with Dan Patrick and talking about the success that they had with the Seattle Seahawks with Sam Darnold, one of those discard quarterbacks who gets a new life with Seattle. And maybe that is, it's a copycat league. And teams are looking now for the next Sam Darnold. Who can they get? And boy, did they get a great deal there because he's playing for under market value for top quarterbacks, like $33 million a year. It's hard to believe that, but that's what it is. And the next one could be Malik Willis, who has shined in Green Bay. This is Sims on what he's seen from Willis and why he might be so in demand in free agency, which is starting next month.
I think Malik Willis is a superstar, right? I would think he is the crowning gem of guys that's going to be out there as far as free agents that you can get, no compensation, trading, any like that.
Why wouldn't Pittsburgh go for Malik Willis?
If I were them, I'd be looking at that. You're exactly right. I mean, Malik Willis has proven. I mean, he's got special talent. He has a special arm. He's got special mobility. He knows how to run the offense and do all of that. So, yeah, he's a great story here. And, again, another story of, we looked at the draft and, again, I was a Malik Willis fan coming out. And it was like, okay, yeah, I know Kenny Pickett can play in the pocket, and he's very good in the meeting room. And I'm so sick of that damn dumb discussion all the time with some of these quarterbacks. And I'm going to go, oh, yeah, how did that meeting room and in the pocket work for you, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia Raiders? How about the guy that has a ton of talent and can make game-changing plays and just needs a little polish and needs to be coached a little? And that's where, the league misses out on guys like that. But
wait,
Malik
do you
Willis,
like Malik Willis more than Jordan Love?
It's closer than I ever thought it would be, right? I'm really a Jordan Love fan. I mean, again, I'm the one that was like, Jordan Love, I think, is going to be better than Tua when he was coming out in the draft, right? So I'm with that. But Malik Willis, I'm not going to say he's better than Jordan Love right now. I will say that I think he shows more potential to be a greater player than Jordan Love. That's what I would say right now. But I got to see a little bit more before I say he's better than Jordan Love.
And he's $40 million cheaper.
That helps too, but he won't be $40 million cheaper after this offseason. That I think will change.
What about Mac Jones's future?
Well, Mac Jones is first off shown that he's capable of being a starting quarterback. We know that, right? And the guys like Shanahan and McVay and the Ben Johnsons in the world, the guys who have these unbelievable, intricate, hard offenses are always going to like Mac Jones. Just like Shanahan and McVay love the Kirk Cousins of the world and those guys because they can handle all the tricks that they have to offer to make the offense look tricky and awesome, right? So that's where there's always going to be love for Mac Jones. Now he can't carry the team. Right? You put him on crappy Jacksonville for 2 years ago with all that was going on there. Yeah, he's not Josh Allen or Lamar or Mahomes. They're just going to, hey, get on my back, guys. I'll get us through this time period here. No, he's not that. He needs system. He needs help. And when he does do that, you could see he could play at a high level. But at the same time, I don't think the 49ers and Shanahan are just going to give him away. And not only will they have to be blown away by the trade, but the 49ers, as we know, are good. And with healthy, there might be a Super Bowl team. And knowing my buddy Kyle Shanahan, I don't think he would leverage the future of the team and get rid of Mac Jones unless he's very comfortable with who his backup quarterback is. And I don't know if he's there with Curtis Rourke, right, who came off the ACL injury coming from Indiana and being there and being that guy to hold down the fort if something did happen to Brock Purdy.
So what Sam Darnold did was made the Malik Willises of the world very wealthy. The money that's going to be available is going to be a lot higher than it would have been had we not seen what we saw from Sam Darnold. Not that he was great. He was really good in the NFC Championship game. He wasn't great in the Super Bowl, but didn't need to be. And the biggest thing he did was he held on to the football. They knew that their defense was so much better than New England that as long as they didn't make mistakes, that they would grind out the victory. That's why you saw their punt returner set a record with 6 fair catches. Don't turn the ball over. But if you have a team good enough, you have a quarterback who just doesn't screw it up, good enough to handle the offense, do what you need to do, run the football, and that's why you're going to see some of these secondary guys get some really big offers, because if you think your defense is good enough and your special teams that you can do that. And it used to be, and maybe it still is, but it's a copycat league and it's the error of recency. You react to what has just happened, that you wouldn't see that second-tier quarterback get that kind of offer. This is why I think Kirk Cousins is going to play now. I wasn't sure about that. He's going to be released by the Falcons. They save a lot of money by doing that, and he could probably step into a TV job. He did very well working for CBS after Matt Ryan took the Falcons front office job. But if you've got a quarterback who's competent and you believe your defense is good enough, then what Seattle showed you is you can still win a Super Bowl. What we saw from a team 25 years ago now, right? Yeah, more than 25 years ago, was that you could have Tony Banks and Trent Dilfer and still win a Super Bowl. Could you win with something like that now? Well, maybe if your defense was good enough, that could happen. That happened to the 2000 Ravens. Hall of Famer Rod Woodson was on that team and made the case for his defense as the best of all time on the Rich Eisen Show. That's next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
All right, so back to a little bit of football here, and what this defense of Seattle is and how it ranks all time. As I say, the two best defenses that I've seen in my lifetime are the 85 Bears, legendary 85 Bears with Mike Singletary in the middle and Steve McMichael, who just passed away recently from ALS. They had Wilbur Marshall. They were a great team. Plank. They were just a tremendous team, and they beat you before you went on the field. You were scared to death to go out and play those Chicago Bears. 1A, and I could be convinced either way, was the 2000 Ravens. Now, the Redskins actually beat the Ravens in that 2000 season. If you remember, the 2000 season was the go for it year. That's when Dan Snyder had his first full off season. He was approved as the owner just before the start of '99. So free agency was done, the draft was done. But in 2000, he looked at the cap space that had been left behind by Charlie Casserly and went, ooh, 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 ooh. And he went out and he got Deion Sanders and he got Bruce Smith, and they finished 8-8. They played the Ravens that year. Might have been in Baltimore, might have been here, FedEx. Either way, they won the game 14-7. And they won it in part because Tony Banks was the quarterback for the Ravens. That's how they were at that time. And Trent Dilfer, who had been a first-round draft pick, picked just a couple of picks after Heath Shuler in 1994, was not nearly as big a bust as Shuler, but he was not really the answer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now he's in Baltimore as the backup, and they make the change. And he's good enough for a defense that was spectacular. And, it's filled with Hall of Famers, most notably Ray Lewis, of course, but it also had Rod Woodson, who had already had a Hall of Fame career with Pittsburgh before that. If he never plays in Baltimore, he's still in the Hall of Fame. But they were great top to bottom, and Ray Lewis used to go along the sidelines during the game and would say to the offense, just give me 7. That's all I need. Just give me 7. And in some games, that might have been enough, but not in all of them. And they were so inept offensively that they had games that they lost, even with that defense. So yesterday, Woodson's on with Rich Eisen, and they're talking about this Seattle defense, the darkness, or whatever they call them, and where it ranks all time. We saw what they did to Drake May. He had a nightmare of a game. The Ravens played in the Super Bowl against the Giants, who also were not great offensively, but that was just a complete butt kicking. The Giants did score a touchdown. It was on a kick return. But other than that, they bottled them up. 34-7, I believe, was the final score in that game that was played in Tampa. And this was Woodson yesterday with Eisen making the case that his 2000 Ravens defense is, in fact, the best of all time.
I say that we are the best defense in one given year in the history of pro football. That's a fact. I mean, the numbers bear it out. I think we only gave up 18 touchdowns, 17, 18, 19 touchdowns in the whole year. Mm. Rich, we went 5 games. Our offense didn't score a touchdown. We won 3 of them. I mean, this defense, you couldn't run against this. We had Tony Siragusa and Sam Adams up front. Ray came into his own with the other young linebackers and Jamie Sharper and Peter Boulware. And on the back end, we had 2 young corners in Dwayne Starks and Chris McAllister. Me as a veteran player at the safety position, but then we had Chris Herron and Corey Harris at the other safety spot. I mean, we played fast, we played physical, and Marvin Lewis did a great job that year of game planning week in and week out. And that's one of the main reasons he got a job over at Cincinnati as being the head coach.
And he's on the text chain, right? Marvin's on the text chain? He's on that text chain?
I'm not going to say coaches. They're defensive coaches, right? They're all defensive coaches that are on it.
At one point, Rod, there was a 3-game losing streak in the middle of the season. You guys gave up 33 points and lost all 3 games combined.
Wow.
Yes.
And still won the whole darn thing.
Yeah. I mean, we gave up. I can't remember the total. We gave, I think, 35 points week 3 against Jacksonville. Or it's like 35 or 33?
36. It was 39-36.
And I mean, and that was after we gave up that many points, we knew we were going to be a good team, but we just had to make sure that we do everything the right way and that, we did our own game planning as players. We definitely, we challenged each other daily in practice, in the meeting room, and then we had fun going to play football. Football was fun.
So it was Ron Dixon for the kickoff return by the Giants that ruined the whole darn thing for you. That's okay.
Yeah. That's a shame that it counts against us.
Sure. Okay.
The defense, but I get it. But we have our own way of saying, hey, listen, we didn't give up a touchdown.
Right.
We didn't even let him get close enough to kick a field goal. And we said so when I think it was that Monday prior to after they beat the Minnesota Vikings. Ray and I got into the meeting room and we were watching film. Probably halftime, probably about midway through watching the film, we were like, we looked at each other and said, man, if they get across the 50, we're going to take our uniform off and we're going to quit.
Come on.
I'm dead serious. I mean, they played the perfect game against Minnesota. You know, Minnesota had an outstanding offense that year.
Right.
And I was a little nervous about playing Minnesota because they had so many weapons. And I'm like, I don't know, can we handle it? I don't really know. But they were putting up points against any defense. And then when the Giants dismantled them, we were like, what the heck happened? And we looked at the film, and me and Ray were like, oh no, these dudes are going to try to run the ball against us. That's not going to happen. And then if they're going to try to throw, they're going to get sacked.
Yeah, the only player to score in the playoffs against you guys on offense was Eddie George.
Eddie George, the first drive.
Opened the game. Yep.
And I remember that game where they go right down the field and they score. And Brian Billick is like frantic, and he's coming over to us to get ready to give us this pep talk. And Ray Lewis looked at him and said, "Don't. I got this." And he came over and we talked, and we played outstanding after that, and we got the victory.
Yeah, they got the victory big time, and a big storyline around that game. That's Rod Woodson talking about the 2000 Ravens. Was that Ray Lewis is back at the Super Bowl a year after he pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice. He was put in jail, initially charged with murder. This was the limousine incident where he drove down from Baltimore to Tampa to watch this. Was that the one in Atlanta? Yeah, no, they drove from Baltimore to Atlanta. That's what it was. And there was two guys that they picked up, and there was a knife fight along the way. There was a bloody suit that Ray was seen wearing. It was a white suit that was never found. The limousine was full of bullet holes, and this was what everybody was talking about going into that game. Brian Billick tried to divert it. He said in his initial press conference, well, "You're not going to try this case again. You don't have the credentials to do it." It's probably a smart move by the coach to take the focus away from Ray Lewis. But that was, I remember being at what they called Media Day then, and he had one of those, standalone podiums. There was nobody talking to the other players for the Ravens. It was every media person with a microphone or a notepad in front of his spot. And the questions, he stonewalled everything, but eventually he did plead guilty to obstruction of justice, and was never suspended by the NFL. Did get to play with a fine, and that was one of the big criticisms of Paul Tagliabue at the time. Why don't you suspend him? He did plead guilty to obstruction of justice. So that brings me to what the president did yesterday in pardoning a bunch of NFL players or former NFL players. And the pardons did not include Ray Lewis for obstruction of justice. Maybe it was a bridge too far for the president, but these are the former players that he pardoned: Joe Klecko, Nate Newton, Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, and Billy Cannon. Billy Cannon won the Heisman Trophy at LSU in 1960. I think he spent his entire pro career in the AFL. I don't think he played in the NFL, but he was a pro player and a great college player. And these pardons were announced by the pardon czar for the White House. Her name is Alice Marie Johnson, and she said, "As football reminds us, excellence is built on grit, grace, and the courage to rise again. So is our nation." And she thanked President Trump for his continued commitment to second chances. Now, they didn't go as far as O.J. here. And yes, O.J. was acquitted of the murders, though he was found guilty in civil court of that. But didn't do that. And I think just as curious to me is he did not pardon Ray Lewis. Now, here are the players that he pardoned for what they did. Joe Klecko is a great player with the Jets. He pleaded guilty to perjury in 1993 after lying to a federal grand jury that was investigating insurance fraud. He later became a Pro Football Hall of Famer, two-time Associated Press All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowler. Nate Newton, he's not a Hall of Famer, but he was part of the Cowboys' great offensive line when they won those 3 Super Bowls in the 90s. He pleaded guilty to a federal drug trafficking charge in 2002 after authorities discovered $10,000 in his pickup truck, as well as 175 pounds of marijuana in an accompanying car that was with him. Newton went to jail for that. Jamal Lewis, not Ray Lewis, but he did play for the Ravens, also played with the Cleveland Browns. He was a running back, pleaded guilty in a drug case in which he used a cell phone to try and set up a drug deal not long after he was the 5th pick of the 2000 draft. And then Travis Henry pleaded guilty to conspiracy to traffic cocaine in 2009 for financing a drug deal that moved between Colorado and Montana. He was running back for 3 teams, actually made the Pro Bowl once. And Billy Cannon, again, played for the Oilers, the Raiders, and the Chiefs, so he did spend his whole career in the AFL. He became a dentist and admitted to counterfeiting in the mid-1980s after a series of bad investments left him in debt. He went to jail for that. So I think the message from the president is, if you're famous and you're an athlete like Darryl Strawberry, who pleaded guilty to tax evasion and drug charges, went to jail, he was also pardoned late last year, back in November. So, again, if you're looking at the pardons and you look at the list of them, no Ray Lewis on there. Did that just slip by him, or did he think, I really don't want to go that far? Just asking the question. Leftover from the Super Bowl, C.D. Lamb on the Dan Patrick Show about what it's like to play for America's team.
I'm living under a microscope, and I feel like everything that I do is emphasized a lot, right? So, I mean, you get used to it as you continue to build on the culture, understand what's going on, the scenery, the team, getting a feel for how we do things. But, man, it's tough. It's almost like, I don't really know. You walk outside your house and everyone's already outside your house waiting on you to come out. It's almost like an expected appearance. So for us, there's an expectation that's built off the history that we've had, and we got to uphold. So I feel like for us, the pressure's on every single time that we line up or that we're continuing to get the band together to work towards this championship. So everything's going to be overemphasized. We play good. It's the greatest day on earth. We play bad. It's the worst day you can have in your life. So I feel like for us, you just got to keep that even line, stay neutral, and just enjoy it. Because, I mean, you don't get really too many experiences how you get in Dallas.
Are you guys like the Kardashians of the NFL?
That's a unique comparison.
And if so, who are you?
See, I can't just give myself a comparison of a woman, right? Is that?
Well, no, just the popular. Like, are you Kim? Are you famous?
I might be. No, Dak is Kim. Kim is the most famous one, right?
Yeah.
So who's it, Chloe or
Kylie?
I go Kylie. I'm Kylie.
Oh, you're Kylie. I see. Who are you mistaken for? People think you're somebody else.
Every now and then. Not really now though. What's your take?
ASAP.
Yeah, I've heard that all through high school. A little bit. I've heard Young Thug in high school, ASAP, college. I guess as I grow up, I change people.
But that's not bad.
I mean, I guess it's a little
ASAP.
good.
Yeah, I mean.
He's a good-looking guy. No crazy, Appreciate that.
That's C.D. Lamb with Dan Patrick as Radio Row was winding down just before the Super Bowl. And one other from the show that I didn't have time for this week. I want to get this in because it's interesting to listen to. Chris Collinsworth, Mike Tirico appearing together. They did the game, but it's something that all network broadcasters face, that if you're doing a game between two teams, and of course you're always doing a game between two teams, usually the fan bases of both teams don't like you. You're biased towards that team, especially the losing team. So this is how the two of them deal with that, Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico, on alleged bias as they do games.
You would think Cincinnati, although that really is not the case at all. Although I do think I'm making a comeback in a few places.
Okay.
In a few places.
They like you in Kansas City.
Yeah, they think I overly love
Patrick.
Yeah.
You can say it.
Yeah.
Do you overly love Patrick Mahomes?
Well, now I'm like, it's like getting to be entertainment, so we're taking advantage of it now. Now I'm looking for memes. I'm like, God, what did I do to Patrick this week? It's like, I'm his boy, I guess. I don't know.
Do you have have you drawn the ire of any fan base, Mike?
Not yet. No, I just let Chris take those bullets. and it's good for me that way.
Well, why does Joe Buck run into that?
I don't know. And it's so wrong, too. That actually angers me. because Joe's not like that at all.
Wait, it angers you?
It does
that
anger
Joe-
me. Joe's the best.
Yeah, but Joe's like a smart aleck. You know, like he's not going to take. He could be in the last 30 seconds of the Super Bowl and if something comes to his brain, you know what he used to do? This is no kidding.
So you were with Troy and Joe for your first Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, in Jacksonville. But he would go in, and we're sitting there. We go into these production meetings, and the poor assistant coach would come in there. And we'd be asking questions, Troy and I trying to break down the game and the whole thing. And Joe's got his card out, you know, he's like, it's very serious, make a note and doing all that. And then the coach would get up and leave the room. And then Joe, who does great impersonations, would do an impersonation of the coach he had just met, leaving the room, talking about how incredibly stupid I am as a coach, and why would you ask me these? I mean, just like stand-up comedy routines. So there's a reason why, you know, fans, they catch on. Yeah.
But do you listen, like social media, does it, you know, bring attention to things that are important to you that maybe you didn't realize that what you're saying during a game or not saying during a game?
I think every once in a while you'll get caught making a mistake, and that's fine. That's legit. But most of the criticism is there's a direct correlation with who loses the game and who's angry at you on social media. But I think what we all want to do is play-by-play guys, at least. You want to get on social media. Well, maybe you don't want to, but if you get on, you want somebody to say, you're so pro-Rams, and then the next tweet to say, you are so up the Bears, you know what. You know, like, okay, fine. Then I did a great job, and I'm going to leave tonight happy. That's what you want.
That's the single most asked question I've had in my career. Why do you hate thee? And then whoever follows after that, and so why do you hate the whatever, the Rams? And, you know, you try to answer it, but it's like there's no way to answer that. Like, why do you hate the? And then I was like, you know, what's your favorite team? Well, the Rams. And I said, do I hate anybody else? They go, no, just the Rams. I've listened to you a long time. You just hate the Rams. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll work on it.
Yeah, Dick Stockton, who did those classic matchups between the Lakers and the Celtics in the 80s, used to talk about that all the time. He said, you know, the Laker fans hate me because I'm pro-Celtics, and the Celtic fans hate me because I'm pro-Lakers, and you just can't win. And then maybe that's part of the skill of it, that you're that good, like Tirico says, that both sides hate you. Both sides find some way to not like you. All right, that does it for me. Bram is coming up next. Have a great football this weekend, and if the All-Star game in the NBA is your thing, enjoy. I'll see you back here on Monday at 9 a.m.